702 Talks podcast. I'm here with Zach Collins from the Portland Trailblazers, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about himself.
What's up, guys? Like she said, it's my name, Zach Collins. I'm a Las Vegas native. I went to Bishop Gorman, then I went to Gonzaga University for a year, played basketball, and after 1 year I was lucky enough to get drafted, and I got drafted to the Portland Trailblazers, and I've been there for 3 years now, and going into my 4th year, and now I'm on this podcast, my first podcast, so we'll see how it goes.
Super exciting.
Yeah.
So what got you into basketball in the first place other than the fact that you were tall?
So yeah, I mean, it was just always something that I enjoyed playing. Even when I was like a little kid, I would be on like a little kiddie hoop at home. My parents got me one for Christmas, and I liked playing on that. And then it got a little bit more competitive, like in rec leagues and stuff, and I just really enjoyed it. Like, I made a lot of friends doing it, and a lot of friends at school. We all played on the same team, so like that was part of it. And obviously, I had an advantage because I was just always like a little bit taller than everybody. So if you're good at something, you're probably gonna have more fun doing it, and it just kind of started from there. And once I got to 10 years old, it was just basketball, and that's when obviously it got into more club ball and a little bit more serious, a lot more traveling. But I would say from like 5 or 6 years old, I just really liked it.
Cool. Yeah. So what, other than the fact that you said you were always a little bit taller than people, what else do you think set you aside from your peers growing up? Like your nutrition, the way you worked out, staying in the gym, your mental state, like what do you think set you apart?
Well, I think I honestly, like, I had both my parents were really supportive, but my dad was just like really, he knew a lot about basketball, and he loved the fact that I loved the game and had fun doing it. So I've had him as a coach from day one, so I've always kind of had that advantage of like him teaching me the fundamentals and also being my coach, and something like we can go home and talk about the stuff and bring it to the, you know, to the gym to practice it. And I think that was kind of an advantage I had. And it's also like I've always been really competitive. I always didn't want to lose, and you know, as you play more and more, you get better and better. You want to continue to prove that you're better and continue to win. So I think that's just kind of what helped me stick with it. And you know, I'm really hard on myself, but I think that always, you know, that criticism pushes me to like want to get back out there and win games and beat other players. So that's probably what pushed me to this point.
So talking about how you're so competitive and you're always wanting to win and hating to lose, did you ever struggle with that mentally growing up where you were too hard on yourself and you had to go to someone and be like, look, like I don't understand why this day was so bad and I was so great yesterday? Or like, do you struggle with that now? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, that was a big part of it. I was really hard on myself. I like had a lot of bad days where in my head I stirred up the bad practice or the bad game to be way worse than it really was. And that was a big issue. You know, my dad, he never really pushed me to like, hey, you need to get in the gym, or like you need to not hang out with your friends and go work out. He was always mad at me because I was so hard on myself, and I really, you know, I had a lot of pity parties for myself, and he didn't like that. So that's why he was always on me about that stuff. And so it was definitely a big struggle growing up, and it's something that I still got to get better at. I'm obviously light years ahead of where I was, but that was a huge part of it. The game wasn't as fun as it should have been at times because I was making it such a bigger deal than it was. But yeah, it was definitely tough, and I didn't, especially at a younger age, I just continued to think like that, and for some reason I didn't really make a lot of strides until I got older.
So with you going into the NBA, being drafted 10th overall, how did it feel at that moment from going from Gonzaga and not starting to being 10th pick overall and just being this big force now in the NBA where people are like looking up to you and saying, I want to be the next Zach Collins? Like how did that feel?
It's crazy. I mean, to this day, like even what I mentioned before about like growing up and just having bad days and mentally like telling myself I'm not good enough or just making it real negative in my head, and to now be at this point, it's still surreal to me. I know that sounds like something that everybody would probably say, but it truly is. Like I can't believe I'm in the position I am right now based on where I started. So I'm definitely very thankful that I got to this point, and I had a lot of good people in my life just to tell me like to stick with it, you know, when I didn't want to play because I didn't think I was good enough. They just told me to stick with it and you'll be fine. And I'm glad I listened to them because it definitely worked out.
So did you ever have like any pressure right when you got drafted, 10th overall, not starting at Gonzaga? Did you have the pressure of, okay, now I have to live up to the expectation of the 10th overall pick?
Yeah, absolutely. That comes with it. Anytime you're drafted that high, you know, I remember growing up watching guys get drafted super high, and I even had high expectations for them. Like, well, if they got drafted that high, they better pan out, you know. So you think about those things. You never want to get to the point where you're called a bust. I mean, that would suck. So you definitely just want to go out there and you don't want to play for other people, but you know that those talks are going to come. So I just try to keep the focus on how I want to play and helping the team win as much as I can. And I think when you win, that overshadows a lot of other stuff. So as long as I'm helping the team win, you know, I can live with that.
Cool. I want to get into the playing in the bubble with COVID, because I coached some volleyball girls here in Vegas, and now they're coming to me and they're like, Coach, we have to start practicing with masks on, this, that, and the other, and it's gonna not, like, I can't breathe in the mask, all this stuff. And they always bring up, we wish we were in a bubble. And now that I have you here, how does being in a bubble and not having to play in a mask differ from when you're just like doing your everyday stuff in a mask? Because now these kids are having to wear a mask and they don't have the luxury of having a bubble. So how do you think that, first I want to know how the bubble went, but I also want to know what you think, how kids can possibly get through playing in a mask mentally, because that's going to definitely take a toll on them.
Yeah, I mean, the bubble, just start out with your first question, like the bubble was cool. Like the food wasn't great when we first got there. Like it was just, it was real cafeteria-like, and you know, we all have to make sacrifices. Like it's not going to be a perfect situation, but the food was pretty bad. And to the NBA's credit, they listened to us and they listened to our complaints, and we got some better food in there. So that the food wasn't really an issue, even though it felt like the same stuff every day. It was like chicken, fish, steak, pretty much every other day, and it was cool. Just the worst part is like it's nothing but basketball all the time. It's like the worst and the best part. It's nothing but basketball all the time. Nothing but basketball and NBA personnel. No friends or family. Can't really get away from the game. You can't go anywhere but the confines of your hotel or the other two hotels. But you know, we were in Disney World. We couldn't go on any of the rides, so that kind of sucked. But I mean, I think it was as good as it could have been. The fact that there was no cases and nobody got sick, I think, is really good. It's just, you know, it's tough not being able to see people and just being in one spot. That was the worst part. But performance-wise, it was ideal because we didn't have to travel. Like recovery was a lot better. Like we did a good job with all that stuff, and you know, it felt kind of like an AAU like tournament, like a really extended AAU tournament where you can still go to a lot of places, but when you're a young kid, you can't really drive anywhere anyway, so it's just whatever the coach wants to do. So yeah, it was cool. Definitely an experience I'll never forget. You really had to learn how to like manage your time. You're in your hotel room by yourself because you can't have teammates come in there, or you're downstairs in the lobby or in the team room talking to your team, eating food. Like it kind of felt like Groundhog's Day every day, which it was like that for everybody during quarantine. But yeah, it was a grind mentally. As long as you had your head on straight and you kept your mind going about just playing, I think you're fine. And then for your other question about playing with a mask, I mean, I can't really speak on experience with that because we just had to wear masks everywhere we went. But once we got to work out or get on the court, like we could just take them off. So that's definitely going to be a tough thing. I think mentally you just got to kind of prepare yourself, and I think it's important you're not going to get around it. Like you're not going to be able to just say like, hey, I don't want to wear a mask. Like it's the rule. So I think making sure that you wear that mask as much as possible, and you practice in it, and you practice how you play. So I think that's really important, just to embrace it. I don't know how it's going to go. That's tough.
Yeah. So did you have any like teammates or witness any of the players in the bubble go like completely ballistic because they couldn't? Like when I imagine like myself in a bubble,
Yeah.
I would imagine myself going to the doors, like, and them locked, and me shaking the doors, trying to get them out. Like, I would go crazy. Did you, like, ever yourself feel that way? Or, like, did you witness any players kind of go off the deep end?
Yeah. I mean, not off the deep end, but you could just tell some guys, like a month in, you just wake up and you're just doing the same thing every single day. And it's just like, hey, guys, you know, like, what's up?
Did you guys have therapists in the bubble to, like,
yeah,
talk to?
the NBA, they're like, so we had to do like a health check every day on our phones. Like we had to do a temperature, and they had to check our like pulse. And there was a questionnaire, and one of the questions was, do you need to talk to somebody? So that was available. I never personally used it, and I don't know. I didn't really ask any of my teammates if they used it, but I think for the most part our team was okay. But some of the guys that were there a little longer, I'm sure that they probably used that. You know, we had that big thing where we had all the players meet at one time because there was the boycott. We boycotted a game. And there were definitely a couple guys that spoke out that said, look, like, the bubble's not great. Like, I understand if we don't want to play anymore. So, yeah, I think it definitely got to a couple of guys. But for the most part, again, it's the bubble. We all got to make sacrifices in this time. And I think the NBA did just about as good a job as they could.
Oh, 100%. I think they did a phenomenal job. I think it was only you guys in the NHL who came out with no cases. So that's insane. I know the NFL is crazy up in cases right now. So when you went to the NBA, growing up, like, all of us obviously have watched LeBron, watched Kobe, watched all these guys. How does it feel like playing with them now? Like, being on your couch rooting for these guys, and now you're playing with them, and the little you, future little you, is watching you play, and they're like, oh my god, like, I want to be like him, and then they could have a chance to be playing in the NBA with you. What would be like your advice to that little kid right now watching you play, since you were in their same position?
Just don't think it can't happen, because like I was that kid just like looking up to him like, oh, I'm gonna be a fan the rest of my life. I'll never get to be at that position. I want to be. It's a dream, but it probably won't happen because these guys are so good, and it takes a lot of work. But don't count yourself out, because like it could really happen if you really want it. So as corny as that sounds, I feel like it's about the same answer anybody in any profession would give you. But I think it's definitely like it's very surreal. You got to pinch yourself. When I was a rookie, I was pinching myself all the time. Like these arenas I watched, like Madison Square Garden, playing against LeBron, like James Harden, Kevin Durant, and again, you see how like you watch on TV and they make the game look so easy, and you're thinking to yourself as a defender, well, oh, I could guard that, or like this defender is not very good. Like he didn't do this and this, and then you get on the court and it's like that's not the case. Like your whole game plan going into a game where you're going against Kevin Durant or LeBron is to stop that guy, and they're still dropping their average for the season. So it's a different level. But yeah, to that kid, just enjoy it, enjoy being a fan, but don't count yourself out, because it could happen.
What's your mental preparation going into games when you play against people like Anthony Davis and LeBron James and these power teams? How do you sit there before a game and be like, okay, this is the guy that I'm guarding, or this guy's going to be guarding me? How do you mentally stay in, I call it the 6 inches between your ears, and not let it get any bigger than that or outside of it?
That's huge. I think the biggest thing that it kind of goes along with what you said is to make sure you don't get caught up in being starstruck, and don't go out there thinking like, oh my God, it's LeBron, or oh my God, it's Anthony Davis. You have to go out there like, okay, that's the opponent. Like, what are his weaknesses? What are his strengths? We're gonna attack those and go out there and do our best. Like you can't worry about the hype going into the game, how many people are watching, how loud the crowd is. You just have to keep it in mind that, look, like these guys they bleed just like you. Obviously they're really good players, but they're not superhuman. They're not gods. You got to go in there with the mentality that you could stop them, and you have to go in there with supreme confidence. But like those are the games you like playing, like against those really like big time players, because there's a lot of people watching. There's a lot of hype around the game. Mm-hmm. And I think like just like when you do something good in those games, or you go on a run in those games, it feels like the playoffs. So like you live for those moments. So you just have to embrace it, I think, and not be afraid.
Mentally, how do you prepare yourself for that? Like, what are the words that are going through your head before you step on the court and during timeouts when you play against powerhouse teams like that?
Again, just have a positive mindset. Like, okay, like yeah, they're really good players, but what if I went out there and did something really good against them, or what if I went out there and played really well, or like what if I went out there and showed people like this guy can be stopped, or I'm the guy that stopped this guy. Like you just have to go in there and and visualize yourself doing those things. And as far as like self-talk, like I'm just in my head, I'm like, all right, just make that big play, or just like go out there and be you. Don't be anything else. Don't worry about what people are saying. Just go out there and be you, and try to stop that guy, because it's a good feeling stopping those top guys.
Okay, so I want to get into. So we're here in Las Vegas at Savage 3. It's a brand new gym out here in Las Vegas. It's all about performance recovery. So we stuck Zach on Monday. We stuck him in our cryotherapy machine, and I want to get into that. How does that feel? How do you feel now that it's Friday? What were the effects like right after versus a couple days after to now? How did you like it?
I definitely had like a feeling of like freshness, like coming out of there. Like my body just kind of felt like relieved of like everything, because it was at the end of the day. I had already worked out, and it just kind of like your body's a little tight, a little tired, and it kind of took all that away. So it felt really good. I feel good right now. Again, I think it's probably one of those things where you got to do it a couple times and keep it consistent to really feel the effects. But I enjoyed it. I'm usually a cold tub guy. We talked about it, but the nice thing about a cryo is that it's only like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you're done. So it's a little bit more convenient than a cold tub. So we'll see if I can make that transition. But I definitely enjoyed it.
Nice. So with the cryotherapy, one of the benefits is it helps with anxiety, the relief of anxiety and depression. Did you ever in your career or in life outside of basketball struggle with either anxiety or depression, even if it's in like the most minute kind of case?
Yeah, I don't think I would classify anything that I went through as like anxiety or depression. I think I've had like a couple like bad moments as far as like being really down on myself and counting myself out, not believing in myself, and thinking that, you know, if I have a bad game or bad practice, or somebody in a game gives me like 15 or 20 points and just making me look foolish out there, I'll come home and really just think I'm like worthless, because like basketball is like my life, and if I'm not good at that, then what am I good at? You know, I have moments like that, and that's probably the extent of where it's been. But I don't think I ever got to like, thankfully I never got into it to where I was so deep that I was like depressed or I had anxiety. Like usually it would be like a day or two of like feeling sorry for myself, and then I'd bounce back. And now that I'm in the NBA, you play so many games, like you really have no choice but to like just forget about it and bounce back, because if you're still thinking about sucking going into the next game, that's going to carry over to that game, and then, you know, it's smart to just get it out of your head. But I definitely had more of those moments when I was younger, for sure.
How did you deal with those moments? A lot of my kids nowadays are turning to social media, and they watch Texas and Baylor and all these powerhouse schools like Nebraska, all these big time volleyball athletes. When they are terrible or when they have a bad game, a lot of them come to me like, Coach, I watched this girl from Texas and she does this, that, and the other, and they're turning to social media. Did you ever go home and like turn to social media and kind of get a fear of missing out of stuff and looking into the videos and watching like, oh, this guy does this way, why couldn't I do it? Mm-hmm. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, for sure. You always like struggle with comparison growing up, especially at a young age. I always struggle with that. Even away from social media, just people who like just being around Vegas and Vegas players getting talked about more than me. You know, then it's like, well, why aren't they talking about me? And then you go watch their highlights or whatever, and you see they're doing all this crazy stuff that you know, that's not what my game is. Then you're like, well, damn, if I can't do that, I don't think I'm gonna make it like they are. So that's always comparison is the thief of like happiness or something like that. I think my teammate said that, but yeah, it's tough. Social media can be such a positive thing, but depending on the person and the situation, it could be really negative too. So I think it all depends on what a person's mentality is and how they take criticism and how they take seeing stuff online, and are they going to compare themselves, or are they going to see people who are doing better and flip that and be like, okay, well, what are they doing to be that good? And I think that's a good way to use it. And I think that's where I'm getting now is like, okay, that person's that good. What is he doing? Maybe I should try what he's doing instead of trying to like be jealous of what they're doing or like hate them for being as good as they are and be like, well, they must have gotten this or they must have gotten a handout somewhere that I didn't get. So I think it's just about what your mentality is and how you look at things.
So earlier we talked about how there was a pressure when you got drafted 10th round. Now is there a pressure on, you have 100,000 plus followers on social media. Do you feel like you have a pressure to post like certain things and create kind of a front for yourself on social media with all these followers versus just letting out and being the real you? Because that's the whole point of this podcast is I want everyone to kind of figure out that athletes are real people, not just these monsters that they watch on TV Thursday nights or Monday nights. Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's pressure. I mean, I get pressure from like my agency, like the world's becoming so social media driven and like you get a lot of deals or like brand deals based off your social media following, what your page looks like. And I definitely get pressure from them to like post more so we can get more deals and like I could be more relevant off the court and stuff. But it's just not me. If I were to post a lot and to put on this like facade that I'm like always happy, then it would just kind of blur the line of being real and being fake. And I just don't want, it's not something that I want to throw on top of stuff I already have to deal with. So I just kind of stay away from it. I'll post when I want to, but I usually use social media just to like send funny memes and stuff to my boys or whatever. So like it's just that's
Who
pretty
doesn't
much
use social media
that's
like
pretty
that?
much what it is. So yeah, I mean but again, it's such a tool. So maybe I'll get to the point where I want to start being more relevant off the court, and maybe at that point I got to be a little bit more tactical with it. But right now I'm just trying to make sure I take care of my stuff on the court and then just hang out. So.
That's nice. So some of my girls are starting to create recruiting pages on social media. And my fear with it is when I got recruited, I used NCSA and just sent out all my stuff to the coaches. They matched me with colleges, all that stuff, and it was easy. Uh-huh. And I never got the people who were commenting and saying like, oh, I'm better than you, watch my highlights, or hey guys, like this is my volleyball page. And like I never got that. I'm sure you never did that, had a basketball recruiting page on Instagram. What do you think, how do you think that social media side of things is going to play into the mental aspect of the game with young athletes? Like, do you think that all these hate comments are going to start to get to some athletes and they'll quit before they can even reach the college level?
Yeah, I think it's a real thing. I think it's definitely a problem, and I think you should definitely be aware of it. I think especially if you're at a young age, I don't think that a kid should be doing that on their own, especially if it's not, I mean, if their personal page, it's whatever. But I think whoever their mentor is in life, whether it's their parents or a coach or something, like they need to be guided a little bit, I think, and they need to make sure that if somebody does comment some mean stuff, like to know how to handle that. I think there's a thing on Instagram now where you can like turn off comments or whatever, so I think that might be something that these kids could do. But yeah, for me growing up, especially like in basketball, like I didn't really know too many people that like had a page for their highlights. But I think it's becoming, as social media grows, maybe more popular and maybe something that needs to happen. So I think just if you're smart about it, I think it'll work. But don't make sure that when you post stuff, you're not posting it to get validation from like other people. You're posting it to get your work to your college or whatever you want to do.
I like that.
Yeah.
Going into with the social media wise, and a lot of my girls will like send me, hey coach, like, because I do nutrition with them. Some of them will be like, hey coach, can I eat this? And they'll send me like cereal killers from TikTok, and I'm like, no, you can't eat the 50-pound bowl of cereal that's every sugar, single cereal in the
Yeah.
So going into the nutrition side of things, growing up, when you lost a game or when you won a game, how did your nutrition differ? Because I definitely, when I lost a game, I would go to like In-N-Out and get a burger, versus when I won, I'd be like, oh, I want some steak and some, like, I want to get my macros in. Like, how does that play into when you were in high school and now? Like, what differs?
Well, I think it was just when I was younger, my post-game meals weren't really like a big deal as far as like being super nutritious. They probably should have been, but they weren't. You know, I didn't really start focusing really hard on nutrition until like college, but more in the NBA. NBA has been a big nutrition kind of shift for me. But yeah, when I was younger, the meals didn't vary too much. But if I had a really bad game and I was feeling really bad about myself, I would like candy, dessert, like stay up late, not go to sleep, just like try to get my mind off stuff, and that would be it's never a good choice. So I think if you just after a bad game use it as motivation, be like, maybe I should eat better because I played like crap tonight. Maybe that'll help me next game. I don't know. Like, I wish I had a better answer, but like when I was growing up, it just wasn't like nutrition after a game wasn't the biggest deal to me. And I think if I had a piece of advice for people growing up now is to make it a big deal early.
Nice.
Yeah.
Last question. When you looking back into your younger self right now, if you could go back and give any advice to your younger self, or the like I said earlier, the kid sitting in the seat watching you right now, what would be your biggest piece of advice, both mentally and lifestyle wise, to that little kid or to your younger self that you wish you knew back then?
Probably to enjoy it as much as you can. Enjoy the times where basketball isn't a job and it's not the number one thing in your life, because there's going to be a point, if you stick with it, or whatever you do in life, there's going to be a point where there's a little bit more work than fun. And I think just to enjoy it as much as possible, don't put too much pressure on yourself early. Just enjoy it and have fun with it. Find things that you love about it. Enjoy that camaraderie of like being with a team. I think learning how to play with the team and to like mix with other people from different backgrounds and different places is something that has been a big help for me just growing as a person, doing that at a young age. So I think just enjoy it, embrace everything about it, everything that sucks, everything that's awesome. I just think just enjoy it. Find out if you truly love it. If you truly love it, you'll stick with it. And then obviously like for a lifestyle, just make sure that you have an identity outside of the whatever sport you play. Like just make sure that it's not just the one thing you live and die on. Just to make yourself like a well-rounded individual, not just only a basketball player, only a volleyball player, only a baseball player. Like there's other parts of life that are important to embrace too. So that's probably the other thing I would say.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on 702 Talks and being our first episode. Definitely plug yourself with social media. I know we just talked about it, but hope you guys follow Zach through his journey through the NBA and through life. Hopefully he becomes a bigger force outside the social media.
Hope so. We'll
so follow him, and we'll hope to have you on later on in the years.
Absolutely.
And follow you through the NBA.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate
for coming
it.
on.
Yeah, no worries.